Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Galactic Cruise from Kins & Key Games. Galactic Cruise is a 1 to 4 player heavyweight Eurogame in which players are trying to arrange, well, galactic cruises to shuttle their passengers across the galaxy to see the sites they want to go to and score as many points as possible along the way. This is a prototype, all rules and components subject to change, and I'll have a link to the crowdfunding campaign down below. Now, like I said at the very beginning here, this is a heavyweight Eurogame. There's a lot going on here. It does all come together, well, fairly well, but do not expect a rules teach from this video. I'll be giving you a general overview of the core mechanics at play, some things of how they all intermingle and work together, and then from there I'll be telling you my thoughts. But if you walk out of this and you're like, I don't know how to play the game, that's to be expected. So, Galactic Cruise. This is a worker placement game. On your turn, you're doing one of 3 things. You are either placing a worker, recalling workers, and activating some break room benefits, or alternatively, you are launching a cruise, which is going to be one of the main ways you get victory points, while also building up your tableau. You're going to be doing those 3 things, round and round and round you go, primarily placing workers for the most part, but the other 2 actions as well, until a game end is triggered and you score things up and see who has the most points, which is going to be a combination of in-game points, but also some of the various goals and end-game scoring you're going to see as well. Now, past that, like I said already, is worker placement. It's worker placement. You're going to be taking your workers from your personal board, and you start with 2 workers, but you can add more. You're going to have these fun little scientists over here you can add to your tableau, but you're going to have to pay to them. There's 2 different ways to get them, and they're both, well, they're expensive at the beginning of the game. They'll cost you, I believe, 12 money. I have to double check the 2 ways to do it. There's 2 ways to do it. They'll both cost a lot of money. It's not always worth it right away, especially since you get your workers back as the game progresses, meaning people will bump your workers out. On your turn, you're going to take a worker, and let's go ahead and grab one of these guys over here. You're going to take one, and you're going to put it on one of these primary 6 worker placement spots on the board. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. That's going to be the worker placement spots. If somebody is already there, they will bump you out, and you'll go back to your break room, getting a break room benefit. So if you're torn between places, going somewhere where you think someone else will want to bump you out, that can get you an additional benefit and save you from having to take a recall turn, which, while good, I think the main placement turns are better, so having workers to place out, ergo getting your workers bumped, is generally a good thing. Past that, you're going to take 2 actions when you place a worker. And by default, you can go ahead and take actions at the location that you're in, but one of the fun things about Galactic Cruise is the fact that you have these little gears over here, because you can use gears, either your own or others, to go ahead and take various benefits. Let's actually put this there, it's a little better. So for example, when I place this worker down over here, I can go ahead and take any one of these 2 actions, but because I have my gear here, I can take one of these 2 actions as well, so I can mix and merge those actions to my heart's content. I can also pay other players or the neutral bank over here to be able to take actions as well. You can use other people's gears to take adjacent actions by paying to the bank or to the other players along the way. So it's a bit of a planning game, which you're trying to plan around the actions you need. You're taking 2 actions, which actions are going to be beneficial for your cause as you go through it. Now, I won't go through every single action, but I will focus on the general things you're trying to do and point out some actions along the way. But you are trying to drive these cruises, which means there's a few different things you need to be mindful of as you do so. You're going to need to go ahead and direct a cruise over here to claim a specific cruise and start it off, and then book passengers to those cruises. Those are going to be actions you're going to want to do, and you can do that through over here, directing a new cruise, and down here, gathering new passengers to go on those cruises. You're starting the effective process of pre-booking your cruise of where you're going to go, which passengers you're going to want along the way, because you're going to want to look at that galaxy. This particular cruise segment over here, this is going to be one of the starting cruises over here. We have a bunch more over here. They'll give you slightly longer jumps through the galaxy. You can see 3 and sometimes 4 spots over here. A little longer cruises that you have to prepare a bit more for, but over here. But again, going back to the starter cruise, having a purple passenger, and they do come in different types over here, having a purple passenger on this cruise over here, that's going to give you a little bit of a benefit, and then you also have these day in space perks as well, which there's a way to activate those, but we won't focus too much. I don't want to distract you too heavily from what you're trying to do. So you're booking a cruise, and you're booking passengers. Now, sometimes you will have more passengers than those you pre-booked. There's a whole sequence to when you actually launch a cruise, because sometimes you have more space than the actual passengers you pre-booked, and you can only pre-book 2 passengers, but again, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. So, starting off, action 1, book a cruise. Action 2, get passengers on the cruise. You're also going to want to expand your spaceship. You start with this little spaceship over here, but that's not really a lot to get things done. You're going to want to get these various passengers' quarters and ideally matching them to the type of passengers you have over here. I have a purple and a blue passenger. Again, they have types. They have family passengers. I'm just not getting into that right now. But you're going to want to get these various blueprints. Now, you can gather blueprints and you can build blueprints. So, for example, you can gather blueprints over here and you can build blueprints over, this is going to be the building blueprints over here, where you can go ahead and build build blueprints, paying the cost on the blueprint, getting that many points, and then putting this into your ship, where now you have the opportunity to potentially cater to those passengers once you have a few segments. You're going to go ahead and have these different spots in the middle where you can make a larger and larger spaceship and put various people down there, and you can also even build blueprints directly from this board by paying those additional costs. So again, building a bigger spaceship is good because that's how you're going to actually get people through space. If you don't really have much more than these two over here, then there's, this can launch, but it can't really take anyone with it. So you want to build a better spaceship. So again, we've booked our cruise, we've gotten passengers, we've gotten blueprints, and we are building those blueprints to take us further through space. We talked briefly about those scientists. We're not going to heavily get into them, but you can go ahead and get these scientists over here with this action here, but you also need to pay for them. That's going to be one of the things you're doing over there. This is going to be how you get new spaceships in play. You're going to be able to take spots from these over here, take new tops and bottoms that give you new benefits for actually launching the cruise and benefits for going through space and all that, different points and rewards you're going to get. So you're going to want to gather those and build more spaceships along the way, because building more spaceships is good. You want to take those things through space so you can have more crews going simultaneously, or just get more perks and victory points along the way. So again, more stuff that you're doing. You're also going to want to gather these cards down here. These are kind of catch-all cards that you can either discard for resources or use for the abilities, and the abilities are a lot of fun. These things will give you ways to break the game. Having a few of those on hand is very helpful, and you can gather those by going to this spot over here, where you can go ahead and take those benefits, or you can go here and then restock the market, taking all the bonuses that are visible. So for example, if I went ahead and took this action and this action together, let's pretend that, swap these so they're actually adjacent over here, and there actually are predefined setups that are a little bit more intuitive for natural strategies that we'll develop that we're not getting into here. This is a kind of random chaotic setup as opposed to the starting setup the game provides. But again, let's say we have these two actions over here. Having someone go here to take the last two cards to the market, then pay yellow to go ahead and take this action over here to restock the market and take all those benefits. That could be a fun little boss move over to take over, so you want to try to be mindful of taking the various cards in the market and restocking the market and taking all the benefits. What else am I missing over here? Let's go through these. We've covered this. Over here, you're going to be able to put new gears on the board, either on these various interweaving spots between the locations to give you more flexibility, or give others flexibility at the cost of paying you, or alternatively, you also have these science cards up at the top over here, which are going to be various things that if you can get a gear here, you can go ahead and benefit from that, or even pay others, again, to benefit from their placement as well. There's lots of freebies over here paying for things. But I didn't talk about one thing, which is every game is going to have a random bonus tile for the scientists over here. How the scientist is different or better. So a scientist is not just another worker, they are a better worker, and there's ways to make all your workers better as well. But this one over here, for example, lets you utilize other people's gears without paying anything for it, which means suddenly all that work people put into building and bettering the universe, they're not even getting paid for it. Their copyright has run out. Cue me drawing Disney or Mickey Mouse or something like that. Mickey Mouse ran out this year. There's some, but not really Mickey Mouse. Steamboat Willie ran. It's a whole random thing anyway. Let's go back to these actions over here. So we cover this. Down over here, you're going to be able to gather resources, and over here, you're going to be able to refill the resource market, getting benefits over there. Sorry, that one's this one. This is where you'll refill the resource market. Over here, you'll be able to take resources, and over here, you'll be able to pay cash to get various resources or advertising. Advertising is going to be how you pay to actually get people into your cruise ship over there. And so from there, you can see the various actions we've gone through. But a quick kind of overview, you are ultimately trying to launch cruises in this game. And to that end, in order to launch a cruise, you're going to need to book a cruise, you're going to need to get passengers, you're going to need to build a better spaceship, you're going to need resources to do all those things, so you want to be mindful of the resource market, and you're basically trying to do all of those things. We didn't really talk about this part, but over here, down this player board, this is your personal player board. Whenever you put a gear here, not only are you improving the market over here, but you're also clearing up this board so you can store more resources, because you're going to need food, fuel, and, well, food, gas, and fuel to be able to actually launch your rockets in space. Speaking of your player board, let's go ahead and focus on this, because by now, hopefully you have some sense of an idea of what's going on to actually launching a cruise. Now, when you launch a cruise, you're going to, on your turn, say you're launching a cruise, you're going to go through a few steps over here. That's all listed on your player board. You're going to really go through this little checklist over here and put that little meeple down here and work your way up, which is going to be a bunch of steps as far as what you're actually doing. You're choosing your rocket, you're putting the passengers into the rocket, you're taking a cube, putting on the track over there into these little end game triggers over here on the side. You're going to be moving through there, you're going to pay all the resources you need, give yourself some points, and you're also going to be taking the little marker over here. These markers, when you launch cruises, when you book cruises, they're going to be flipped over here. When you launch them, they're going to go onto your spaceship, and eventually they're going to go onto these various planets. Depending on which planets you visit as you go on these cruises, you're going to drop these off, which are going to not only make those planets more efficient to visit in the future, because you're going to get points for, well, not just the default points printed, but whatever points are also over over here, but you're also going to unlock 9 different benefits, or I should be more specific, 1 of 9 different benefits. 1 of 9 different benefits will be unlocked whenever you go on a cruise, making it more interesting or appealing as far as what your engine is in this game and the benefits you get. And I'm not going to heavily go into all those because, like I said already, I'm trying not to go too far down a rabbit hole. But that is basically Galactic Cruise in a nutshell. You're going through a process of a worker placement game, which has a huge degree of variety and randomness to how this board is structured, the various ability tiles. You're trying to manage or mitigate around how you're going to build all your things and get all your stuff while trying to be mindful of the different ways the actions combine and which ways you can take advantage of as you go through it. There is a handy dandy player aid over here, which is going to be this by the way, this is your player aid. So if you thought there's a lot of stuff, there is a lot of stuff. It does come together. It really does come together very nicely. I'll say that, but it is a lot that you have to pick up and process as you're first diving into the game, and you're going to rinse and repeat this process of launching cruises. One thing we didn't talk about is when a cruise is launched, you're going to be processing that cruise every single day as you go through the game, meaning you don't just launch a cruise and resolve it, rather you launch a cruise and then continue playing a game with your worker tied up. This is not my worker. With your worker tied up instead, you're going to be launching that cruise and your worker is going to be tied up in space throughout the duration of the cruise, which means you have less workers on the table, which means you want to get those scientist people in play because they're awesome, they're cool, they're helpful, and otherwise you're going to be taking business meetings all the time. You're calling your workers inefficiently if you don't really have them present on the game board. And that's kind of Galactic Cruise. Lots of things we didn't get into. There's a lot going on in this game, but I'm trying to give you the general picture as opposed to the individual nuance, and that is kind of Galactic Cruise, or at least as much as you're going to get from it from me. Which brings us to a review starting off with ease of play. There's a lot going on here. This is a heavyweight Euro game that has a lot of intricate things all tied together, and I do not think it is overly complicated. I do think, I think like, I'm trying to think of weight class where I'd put it. I don't know where I'd put it weight class wise. I do not think it is the most complicated game, but I do think there's a lot of interweaving elements and every one of them has to be explained. Just to give you another example over here, we have this little track over here. As you go through this track, you're going to get the benefits where you don't pay less to be able to utilize other people's gears, but you can also move your markers back to be able to take these additional benefits. That wasn't really a lot of explanation, and I mostly covered how that track works. There's also endgame points on the track. It's not a lot, but it's just one more thing you have to know, and there's a bunch of those one more things you have to know that I haven't even told you, and I've kind of rushed through this. So this is easily like a 30-minute teach if you're trying to do it relatively efficiently. You can go faster if players are willing to start without knowing everything, and you can definitely go slower if you don't talk nearly as fast as me, and if other people are not processing things as fastly as you'd like. This is there's a lot going on here. There's a lot going on here, so the ease of play is not the easiest. Game length varies. There's also an intro shorter game, and there's a longer game. It does depend on the player count as well. I'd say you're looking at 90 minutes on the short end, but that's usually not where you're going to be. I'd say you're probably closer to 2 to 2.5 hours on this one, possibly even longer for a first play, but again, depends on if you're playing the short game. If you're playing a full long game for your first time with a 4-player count, I can see this being much longer than I would want it to be. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking over here, the first thing, starting off with what I like, is the amount of intricate tie-ins that everything has in this game is very rewarding, and more specifically what I love about it is the fact that this little puzzle of worker placement and the way this board is created, the differences that this creates are so impactful game to game in the way you're going to play through this over here. And if you want to remember, by the way, if you're playing 2 players, you have these little extra meeples to go on the board that create a little bit of a booting segment, whatever. I'm not going to heavily go into. One more thing I'm not going to heavily go into. But the different actions you have and the way you're going to be mixing and matching with these go, and they really mix and match completely. I mean, you can go ahead and flip that to that way, that to that way. They can go anywhere on the board in any different configuration. You are not limited at all. There are 12 possible actions and they all mix and match. And the adjacencies that are created, which ones are in the exact same spot and which ones are in adjacent spots, will completely transform the way you have to approach this game every single time. And then you also have the scientist tile, which again is going to be something different every single time. You have the ability tiles up top, that's going to be different every single time. And that's aside from, of course, the card market and the various places to put your people over here, or the various rockets over there. Those are all smaller, nuanced aspects. I'm also missing tokens in the top corner. Don't shout at me. There's some reward tokens that would go up here that give you different benefits as well for different type of passengers doing their day in space. Again, lots of things. But the differences that are present in this game every single time you play it is so vast that it gives you a completely different way to approach it when you play this, which I like a lot. One of the things that is not for me, I found over the years, is Euro games, or any game for that matter, that gives you a puzzle that you have to approach it the same way every time, and you're just trying to make it slightly more efficient, but within the same way that you're approaching it. I like it when a game forces you to iterate and adjust while giving you the same framework, and just the core action mechanics over here, the actions, the way they are on this board, board, and the way it's not just worker placement with an individual location, but it's worker placement with what's at the location and what's at adjacent locations, but with a cost tied in, that really forces you to evaluate things differently as you go through the game, and I really appreciate that, well, a lot. It's one of my favorite things about playing this again as opposed to just playing this. But past that, everything ties together. You are trying to make your passengers go through space, and that's going to give you this little tableau over here. You're going to have this little tableau abilities over here on your personal player board, and there's going to be 9 different abilities here. You're going to want all of them, but you can't get them all, at least not at first. At least, I don't think you can get them all ever, but you can't get them all for sure, not at first. And the order you choose to unlock those, combined with everything happening on the board, combined with the cards over here, combined with just the passengers you're able to get access to. We haven't even talked, again, going to those things you have to learn. There's a whole process for going on a cruise and then restocking the passenger market. There's things going on here. There's a lot of stuff going on, but the tableau benefits you have going on, again, we haven't talked about this as well, but on your personal player board, as you launch these rockets, you're making these little coffee break room benefits better. There are one-time benefits down here. You can go ahead and take those off and just get that one-time benefit, and these are going to reduce the cost of getting new scientists as well. But you also have this track over here, where as you return, you can get various benefits, either advertising, points, resources, or money, and those get stronger and stronger as you launch rocket after rocket, which gives you that degree of tableau building, that slow escalation that you're getting stronger and more powerful as the game goes on, both through the storage of your spaceship, the way the board's creating, the amount of passengers you have, just the amount of things coming your way every single turn gets stronger as you go through it. And so everything about this game is a fun little puzzle of optimization within the framework that the game gave you as you go through it. And it's not overly burdensome as far, well, the rules-wise is a lot, but the actual intricacies of how things tie together, it does make sense fairly quickly once you have it up and running. This is one of those games that the initial load is a lot, but the processing, once you start playing it, is just about to find those connections. Well, I need to do this to get that, but I want to do this first to get that. I love games that force you to consistently evaluate which thing you want to do first, because they're all so important in the order that you do them. Because I want to do this first, because that'll give me this, but if I do that first, it'll give me that, and that will give me an additional benefit here, and I get an additional person placed on the board there. They all give you those things there, and I like that FOMO that is created, that sense of pressure. One of the reasons drafting is my favorite mechanic is because drafting is always not just a choice of what you can have, but a choice of what you can't have, and this game very much gives me that feel as you go through it, because the order and sequencing of everything is so well done that everything is important, and you're just choosing the order of importance, whether it's launching a cruise first as you get through space, whether it's trying to improve your tableau, whether it's trying to get more passengers onto that first ship because you can get more out of that, versus just trying to get that first cruise launch to begin with. There are so many different decisions as to the order and way you're approaching this game, while giving you a different infrastructure every single time as far as how to approach it, that it's just a very solid, it's just a fun experience. It's a fun experience is what it is. As far as things I don't like in the game, first of all, the teach is a beast. It's a problem. In general, I have this problem with my game group in general. Not my game group, my game collection, I should say, which is anytime a game is a hard teach, it has to be that much better for me to hold on to that game, because the degree of how complicated a game is to teach means I'm less likely to want to teach new people. Congratulations, I'll play Galactic Cruise with you at a convention anytime I meet you. Well, not anytime I meet you, I'm often busy at conventions, but some conventions, maybe Dice Tower West, Dice Tower East, Level Up Retreat, playing games conventions. I'll sit down and play Galactic Cruise with you because I know how to play it. But I'm not going to want to teach new people in my game group. Even now, I've just finally taught it to my game group. And now what? I have to wait a year and a half for it to come back because this is a prototype. And hopefully I have to remember that they still remember how to play or teach new people. It's games that are hard to teach have a degree of burden to them, and that's certainly present with Galactic Cruise. I do think that the end result is a very grokkable game, a very understandable game, but the initial teach is a lot that I've been focusing on a lot for a reason as we go through this review. I'll say that endgame scoring takes a full game to understand the whole impacts of everything going on here. I mean, this is a game where, as you go through it over here, you're playing through the game, and congratulations, but you're spending so much time processing how everything ties in that you're going to get to the mid-game or end-game and want to remind people how everything else scores, because they've been focusing on a facet of how the game operates, which is what they have to do just because of the rules overhead. The last thing I want to do is give you this much rules and then not give you time to process them. So I need to let you process them by playing the game, which means halfway through the game, I'm like, let me tell you about all those end games. Have I even shown you the goals you have to be mindful of? And ideally the answer, you should show people the goals sooner rather than later. But there's a bunch of things that all merged together that really does mean that your first game should either be considered a learning game, or you should really be playing with people who don't mind finding out some of those important things, you know, a quarter of the way or a third of the way into the game experience. But that means the first game is a bit of a write-off. Even though it all comes together, it's information overload. That's the problem. It's information overload as you go through it. As far as I can see others not liking, first of all, you can feel resource starved in this game. There are a dozen ways. In fact, the rulebook does a great job. Isn't it on this one over here? The rulebook does a great job showing you all the various things. Maybe it's in the... I think it's over here. Yeah, over here. How do you get it? This little sheet over here tells you how you get and where to use all the different resources, which is a lovely little thing, completely unnecessary. Past that, they have all the various symbols, so you don't need to reference the manual. You have everything you need over here. But yeah, you can feel resource starved. It doesn't bother me because I've always found there's a way to get that thing, some way, somewhere to be able to pay into something. Whether it's rocket launches are often present, but you have these over here. So as soon as players have abilities over here, or then you can go ahead and pay other players to utilize that. So you may not have fuel, but you have cash, so you have your way out. You can slide your way down this track over here to get a benefit, which can be painful, but can get you out of a tight spot. Or maybe you're holding onto these cards, and you can discard these cards that you were holding onto for the cool ability, but ultimately you need that fuel to launch the rocket, so you're going to do what you're going to do. But again, you can feel resource starved in the game. There's enough ways around it that doesn't bother me personally. I'll say that as you get to the first cruises, when you're in that kind of starting phase where you're starting to take a few cruises, but you also haven't gotten a lot of scientists yet, it's very easy to find yourself in a situation where a lot of players are just pulling back their workers in the game. So you're like, oh, I place a worker, I take a business meeting. I place a worker, I take a business meeting. And that doesn't go on that long. Your cruises are not in space that long until you have more of a cycle built up, but it can feel like a bit like the worker placement is like when you have two people placing workers back and forth combined with the dummy workers, or if you're playing at higher player counts, those work well as far as the feeling of being bumped just enough that you do have to take business meetings, but not that frequently. But when you get to that, first few rocket launches, you'll find yourself pulling back workers a lot more commonly, and that's just less of a fun experience, I think. The 1-for-1 is less of a fun experience. As far as final thoughts on Galactic Cruise, by now you probably have a good idea, assuming you didn't skip here from the beginning of the video and clicking on the timestamp, and if you did, I respect that. I do respect that. But as far as final thoughts on Galactic Cruise, if you've been watching this whole thing through, then you probably have a good sense or idea of how I feel about the game. Which is, I really, really like the game. There's a lot of fun things going on here. It's an intricate system. It's very rewarding, very puzzly. It's a beautiful system that I really like, with the caveat that it's a lot to teach. And games like that do take away from the experience for me. Now, make no mistake, I have many games that I love that I've enjoyed. Recently, I reviewed Sankori from Osprey Games, and I love that game. It's a beast to teach, but the degrees of intricacy of everything going on just make it so that, to me, I'm like, it's worth it. But I also only have the bandwidth of a handful of those games a year, and Galactic Cruise, I'm not yet sure where it is. It very much reminds me of a Lisboa, of a Vital Lacerda style game, which they're definitely going for between the box size, the art, all that. They're going for that feel of a Lacerda game, and it feels to a large extent like a Lacerda games, and those to me have been very rewarding experiences that also have been like, do I want to teach this? And I don't know if I do or don't. For right now, I still like Galactic Cruise enough. I think this game is excellent. It's amazingly well done. If you like that type of game, I think you will enjoy this. It is an excellent game. For me, it is a 4 out of 5. The gameplay on its own is honestly better than that. If I was rating it gameplay alone, it'd probably be a 4.5, but I do have to take into account the fact that the teach is just, it's a lot of information. It's a lot of information that it's not even that hard. No single element is that hard or not intuitive. There's just a lot of interweaving parts. It's a very rewarding end result, and I am curious how this fares for me over time. This could well be one of those Euros that is worth it, and I pull it out, and I play it, and I teach it, and I enjoy it, or it could be one of those games that I think of as an excellent experience, but one that I'm less personally interested in pulling out. So I do think it's fantastic, and I do think if you like Lacerdas, this game does feel like a Lacerda to me. And again, they're clearly going for that in their presentation and all that, but it feels like a Lacerda to me in terms of what it's doing and how everything ties together, of how it's rules heavy and weight heavy while not being that complicated to actually pull it all together. So it's a great game. It's a great game. That's going to be Galactic Cruise. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, Lisboa. I would say Lisboa does feel very similar. It's very different than Lisboa. Very, very different. But I guess the rules overhead, but simplicity of how it all ties together, it really, to me, the game that most felt similar to would be Lisboa from Vital Lacerda and Eagle Griffin Games. And then if you're looking for another game that has a medium weight game of trying to construct vessels and go on different journeys, I think Shipyard, which is back in print. Shipyard from... Oh my gosh, I'm blanking. Oh my god, the Evacuation, I'm blanking on his name. It's gonna drive me nuts. Who designed Evacuation? Who designed Messina 1347? I'm blanking. But Shipyard is a great game, by that designer, whose name I'm blanking on. I apologize for it. I will get a whole bunch of comments down below, and I deserve it. I don't remember. Anyway, Shipyard. I'd recommend Shipyard as well. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.